Hello language learners! In this video I want to discuss the topic of reading. Reading is an important skill to some people, and there are two main ways to, two main strategies to use reading as a way of language learning practice, depending on what you're trying to get out of reading. In this video, I'm going to talk about two main strategies for reading, intensive and extensive. And when I hear intensive and extensive, I get a little red flag, like, what is that? That sounds complicated, that sounds difficult. Don't worry, the purpose of this video is to make it abundantly clear not only what intensive and extensive reading is, but also one great resource for each, and how to know which one you should be trying depending on what you're trying to get out of your language. First, let's talk about intensive reading. Intensive reading is intensive. It's basically, the basic idea is that you read a story, an essay, a paragraph, whatever it is, you're reading for the purpose of picking out words and phrases and getting vocabulary and maybe understanding some conjugations as you go, and really planting the context of conjugations in your mind, mostly picking up individual words. And one really great example of intensive reading is LingQ. I'm going to go through LingQ. I also have a link below of a link to LingQ. Anyways, I do have a review of LingQ in the description box below if you want some more information on it, but I'm going to go through LingQ right now to show you what exactly intensive reading is. Here we have the LingQ homepage. As you can see, it's really not the prettiest thing in the world, but aesthetics is only one piece of the puzzle. This is my Spanish LingQ, and you have a few stories here, Historia Uno, and all these random things. You see some percentages, 9%, which means 9% of new unique words are new to me. And it's green, which means this will be pretty easy for me. Down here, 26% of the words, the unique words, are new to me. 49 new words in here. This one's 9%, this one's 33%, this one's 10%. So you can use that to, get a general idea of which ones will be more easy, more difficult for you. Keep in mind that this only works if you've been using LingQ. So if you are brand new to LingQ, even if you are not a beginner anymore, the beginner stuff is still going to say 100% because it's going based off of what you have told LingQ that you understand. Let's go into La foto más antigua del mundo. Here we have La foto más antigua del mundo. There are a couple of things. First of all, we see a bunch of highlighted words. These highlighted words are words that you haven't told LingQ that you understand yet. So levanta, I know what levanta is. Get up. Levanta. What I can do is, if I just ignore this word, then LingQ is going to take that as me understanding the word, and I don't need to practice it. Also, another thing with LingQ, while this is great for intensive reading, so what we're doing is we're picking up new vocabulary in context. While this is amazing for that, the one thing is that, levanta is conjugated for levantar. If I were to see levantar conjugated in another way, for example, ellos levantan, it would read it as a new word. So unique words includes different conjugations of different words. So keep that in mind. That may or may not be important to you. Usually for me, I just kind of skip it. It doesn't really make a big deal for me. But that is something to be aware of, and it might change the percentages of the percentage of new words in any individual story. So I already know what levanta is, so I'm just going to skip it. Estrellada. Starry. Okay, so I know what estrellar is. Estrella. Yeah, I know what estrella is, and so estrellada, starry, that makes sense. We're going to go through here. Luz, veloz, bala. What's that? Bala. Bullet. This is a new word for me. If you don't understand a new word, if a word is completely new to you, you would click it. There are three options for what it could possibly be. It'll start by the top, but the word that most people translate bala as is bullet. Bala. You have a bunch of options here. So it's a verb in the present tense. Balar is the verb for it. You can enter some notes in here. It keeps the context in there. And you can save it for your collection of links. Review links in here. We're not going to go in there just yet. But links are the words that you find by intensive reading, the vocabulary that's new to you. That's the basic idea. You can use LingQ to find new vocabulary, new conjugations, via intensive reading. The main idea of the story, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's not your primary concern when you're intensive reading. Reading intensively is seeing all of these words, picking them out and saying, okay, this is a new word for me. Let me save it and put it into my Anki deck and my Memorize, whatever works for you. You can even use LingQ to do just that. But the idea is that you are reading the story for the purpose of finding new vocabulary, which is an excellent way to find new vocabulary. So that's intensive reading. It's, that's the general idea. Again, link below in the description for my review of LingQ, which will go more in depth on what LingQ does and all little features and stuff like that. The idea behind intensive reading is not only picking up specific words and making sure you understand each individual word, but it's also intensive. So it's usually shorter. You're probably not going to be spending an hour doing intensive reading because that's exhausting. That's when you have a book, you have a dictionary, and you're picking out every single word and learning every single word. It takes a lot of effort. So generally with intensive reading, you have smaller passages, you're picking up a few words, and then you might review those words, but basically you're good to go. It takes a lot more energy, a lot more focus because you're being so intentional about it. If you find a word, you pick it up and you translate it and you put it down. Now, what's extensive reading? The example that I'm going to use for extensive reading in this video is this book. This is an Ollie Richards book. If you're not familiar with who Ollie Richards is, Ollie Richards has an entire collection of books for extensive reading. They're entertaining short stories that you can use to read for comprehension, which is what extensive reading is. You answer some questions, make sure you understand it, etc. Now, while intensive reading is more intensive and you're spending more energy and more focus and paying a lot more attention to details, extensive reading is more about comprehension. And I really enjoy the way that Ollie Richards has the books formatted to help you with that and to teach you with that. So we're going to take a look at this book in particular, the one that I've been trying to read but I haven't had time. It happens. I've gone through like the first chapter once and, well, you'll see. This book has an excellent explanation of the way that extensive reading works. So let's go through and see, the example. The one thing that I really want to pay attention to with this is this 6-step reading process. There are 6 steps to how you're supposed to be using this book for extensive reading. The first step is to read the chapter, read the story. Just try and get an idea of what's going on. Don't stop for any new words or new phrases. The idea is to get an idea of what's happening in the story. Reading comprehension. Then number 2 is at the end of the chapter, you'll see a summary of the plot to see if you have understood what has happened. Probably gonna find this a little bit difficult. That's totally okay. That means that you're growing. Number 3 is you read the same chapter again. You can focus a little bit more on story details than before, but otherwise just read it through another time. After you read it for the second time, the 4th thing you do is you read the summary again and review the vocabulary list. And we're going to see what that looks like in a second. Then you go through the comprehension questions to see if you understand the key events of what's going on and just the general, comprehending the important parts of the chapter. Then at that point, if there's anything else that you don't understand, it's totally up to you to review. These chapters do a really excellent job of helping you with extensive reading because, look at this. Most of it is just kind of words, and then you have a couple words in bold. Rastro, se hace realidad, chocarse contra. These are words and phrases that if you're an intermediate level, which, this book is intermediate short stories, these words might be difficult for you. And you go through the chapter, there's all these words thrown in there that you might have a difficult time with. These are the vocabulary words of the section. Then when you get to the end, you have the summary. This is just summarizing the chapter. You have the vocabulary in a list. So all the vocabulary that's been sprinkled out through this chapter are in a list. You can take these words and, if they're new vocabulary for you, you want to study them more, you can go ahead and do that, put them into whatever deck, same with the intensive reading. And then at the end, see, I got an 80% on this because I got too excited and I skipped steps like 3 through 6, whatever it is. I skipped most of the steps. If I had read it one more time, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten better than 80%. But basically the idea is you take these comprehension questions to see if you understand well what happened in the story. This is testing your comprehension. So you can see the huge difference between the strategy that this book leads you through reading and LingQ. While LingQ specifically exists to find you vocabulary and that's the reason for its existence. This book, I mean, sure, vocabulary is in there. If there's new words that you find that you want to look up that you can't figure out from the context of the story, then absolutely look them up. But the main idea is that you're comprehending the story and that you're understanding the story. Extensive reading is about reading comprehension. Intensive reading is more about vocabulary. And that's the big difference. I mentioned that intensive reading is intensive and you're spending a lot of energy finding new words and translating new words and putting them into whatever vocabulary system that you have for yourself. Extensive reading is about enjoying the story. So if you really wanted to, you could just go through this entire story and just enjoy it. This is more for, enjoying reading and learning as you're enjoying. You're being intentional about what it is that you're reading just because of the comprehension questions and the summary. Those little additions in there really help to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more purposeful about your extensive reading. But the idea is the same, that you're reading for comprehension and to ensure that you're understanding the concept of what's happening in the story. As opposed to LingQ with the intensive reading, which is more specifically for vocabulary. It's not really built for, making sure that you're getting the idea of what's going on. If you do, that's awesome. If you don't, it's not a huge deal. It's totally fine because what you're looking for is vocabulary. With this, you want to make sure that you understand what's going on. And if you can't figure out what the vocabulary is from the context of what's happening, if you can't just, use context clues to find out the new vocabulary, you should, find a dictionary, translate new words, translate new phrases, and bada bing, you have new vocabulary. That is the difference between intensive and extensive reading. Links below in the description for more information about these specific resources. Let me know in the comment section below, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer one for a different part of your language learning journey than the other? Which one, do you enjoy reading for fun? Because extensive reading is excellent for reading for fun. Intensive reading is kind of stressful because it'll take 5 minutes to read one page if there's a lot of vocabulary. Intensive reading is not for the enjoyment of reading. Extensive reading is for enjoyment of reading in the foreign language. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Otherwise, you can find me every other Monday at my blog at crashculture.com, every Wednesday and Sunday right here on YouTube, and in my Facebook group at crashculture.com/community. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.